you, Acting Speaker. I wanted to take up the opportunity to support the comments made on this motion that was put before the House by the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition, in particular recognising the 48th anniversary of the Westgate Bridge collapse, an extraordinarily tragic occurrence that affected so many families so dramatically and no doubt for so long. It obviously 35 killed, 18 injured, and the flow-on effects of that through a family and a community are significant. And for me, as I listened to our leaders speak about this in the chamber, it very profoundly reminded me of occasions in my own electorate where we come together to commemorate, sadly, significant numbers of lives lost in work-based disasters. And that's why I wanted to endorse the sentiments that were expressed on the anniversary of this particular disaster that occurred whilst it occurred in Melbourne and not in my own state of New South Wales. I think the repercussions and the feeling that people are reflecting and supporting the motion occur in any areas where we've seen this sort of terrible tragedy occur. So I absolutely heartily endorse the comments of both of our leaders. For myself, I come from the Illawarra, which is obviously a long-time mining area. We've been doing underground coal mining for well over 100 years. And each year on the 31st of July, a great local group of people at Mount Kembla gather together to put a commemoration service in place. It's always a very, very cold evening at a place called Windy Gully, but it's a very moving and very significant occasion. In 1902, the Mount Kembla mine explosion occurred, and at that time, as a result of that explosion, there were 96 men and boys killed. Now, I asked people in this room to imagine how small communities were in 1902. So this is a little mining village. It was not a family who were not directly affected by that level of loss of life. Even if you look at some of the sort of unofficial toll of deaths that occurred after the direct deaths caused, it would have been even higher. But 96 was an extraordinary number of lives in a small community to have been lost. It's significant to me because my mum's family had direct ties, and in fact there were 3 of our ancestors killed in that explosion. Claude Stafford, who was 17, David Stafford, who was 17, and William Stafford, who was 26. And whilst he was 25. While William was 25, he was a widower with small children, and so the implications for these families were just devastating. And so we come together to commemorate that occasion. Why is that so important? It's important to do that because what it does is, I reflect each year as we meet, is it reminds us starkly of the importance of ensuring that we do everything we possibly can to guarantee that people who pack their lunch bag or grab the wallet as they're going out the door off to work in the morning, the afternoon, the evening, whenever they're working, that they come home to those families who are seeing them off and don't die at work as a result of things that should be preventable. Of course, sadly, in 1979, we also saw the Appin coal mine disaster in our area, which again was a significant loss of life. At that time, my dad was employed at the mine, and I was actually living on the mine site. And it's profoundly burned in my memory, that occasion. In fact, we'd been to a high school dance that night, and Mum had come to pick us up, and one of the young guys who came back home with us in the car's father was subsequently killed that evening. These are really, really important reminders. Each of these resulted in inquiries and investigations, recommendations on better work health and safety. They are profound reminders of how vigilant we have to be on these issues for those, not only those workers, but their families and communities. And I do want to put on the record that I think one of the most important interventions that increases the likelihood that we are better at health and safety in our workplaces is the role of the trade union movement. Now, I know that some of those opposites see only bad in the union movement, and I would ask them to look very, very closely at the significant work, and the Leader of the Opposition in his comments on this very motion reflected the fact that the Westgate Bridge disaster itself created a generation of activists because of their dedication to improving safety. And when I look in my area at the Miners' Union and the critical role that they have played around the introduction of better protective technologies, clothing, work practices, it is a critically significant and important role. When I look in my area at the role of unions like the Transport Workers' Union, you know, we all share the roads. That's a workplace for these workers, and we all share the roads, and the continuous work they have done around safer roads for their members and the general public, including, in recent times, very important work around mental health challenges as a workplace issue for drivers. When I look at the work of the construction industry, many of these industries are in highly dangerous environments, and those union representatives spend a great deal of their time working very directly with members about ways in which they can ensure that safety is improved. And I think it is very important to recognise that that's really tough work sometimes. Sometimes those union representatives are doing the home visits to families who've lost people to extend the union support and the members' support to them. And they are taking on sometimes, unfortunately, very recalcitrant employers who may not want to hear the messages about safety. I have to say, I think there's a lot of really good employers in my own region. Like me, they've come from families who've worked in the industry and they really understand it and are great and work really well. But you do come up against those for whom you have to have a bit of a battle to make sure that safety remains a predominant issue. So I just wanted to, in this particular, not really debate, but the acknowledgement of the motion that was carried, to reiterate those sentiments and to express my support, in particular for the point that the Leader of the Opposition made, that at every time and on every occasion, whenever we're in a place in our community where there's a memorial as a result of a workplace disaster, when we speak in this place on these issues, when we watch another report in the news about another tragic workplace death, that every single time we make a commitment and a dedication that in this place, in our roles as we currently perform them, we remain vigilant to be doing everything we can to ensure that people are able to go to work safely and return home to the families that love and care for them. And I extend my great sympathy and support to the members of families and communities that were affected by the Westgate Bridge collapse. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.